Peace and blessings. This is Forward Progress. My name is Carlos Walker, and this is called Mr. Carlos Parks. How you doing, bruh?
I'm outstanding, brother. Peace.
Peace and blessings. So, if you will, before we start, can you share with the people who you are and what you do?
Well, like the name says right there, I'm a professional problem solver, man. I really feel like I've mastered the art of critical thinking, and I've applied it to my life. And it didn't just start here; it started from in prison, right? I guess people recognized that I was a skilled critical thinker, so I was the guy everybody would come to, for advice on how to accomplish something. But as my profession, I'm a licensed real estate agent in the state of North Carolina. I'm a director of communications for a new network on Roku called Fifth Sun Television. I own a couple of different LLCs. I had a trucking company, which I've since dissolved. I have a property management company and something else. I can't remember what else. Oh, a clothing line. Well, it's not a clothing line, an invention that I invented for my daughter's hair. It's called a hair bun, and the company is called Carlia's Hair Bun Covers.
Okay.
A few things. I'm a reentry advocate. I'm a licensed author. I'm a published author. My book is called "From Selling Bricks to Selling Bricks," and well, you can't see it, but it's behind me. From selling bricks to selling bricks, it talks about my story from selling bricks of cocaine to selling houses, bricks. So yeah, and I'm a TEDx speaker. I did a TEDx in 2020 in Greensboro. I'm a former member of Toastmasters International, Dudley Eagle Speakers Bureau, Black Speakers Network. So I kind of train speakers in communication, and um, I'm an entrepreneur and a investor. I own real estate properties. I invest in not high end but low end real estate right now. And I'm looking to become a franchise owner.
Okay.
And
So,
I've been home going on 9 years. On the first of July will be my 9 years home.
congratulations. How long did you do?
I did 17 years. I had a 30-year sentence. I won my appeal, which reduced my sentence from 30 years to 20 years. And on you do 85% in federal system, and I did 17 years on 17 and a half. I got 6 months halfway house. So,
Okay, okay. Look, one, congratulations. Look, on the first for being 9 years. According to most people don't do this, but they don't know the people who are out and doing and thriving.
yeah.
So what this is forward progress. What we talk about is before prison, during prison, but all the forward progression you have made after since prison.
Got you.
So starting off, tell me a little bit about who you were before prison. Uh, you can start off at a young age and
Okay.
gradually move towards how you ended up getting into the game and everything. But share that with me.
All right. Well, I was a regular kid, man. I was like a super high energy kid. Like I was a super athlete, right? I was always first in everything. I ain't never lose a race when I was young. I could out jump everybody. I would swim everybody. I catch snakes, turtles, frogs. I stayed in the woods. Like I was just like I was. I don't know, man. I was just one of those kids. I was like super competitive. If you jump 5 feet, I'm jumping six. Like that was our thing. I would spit you. Like leaving from the pool, you got all this mucus gathered up, so we would sit there and spit, see who could hawk the farthest. It was crazy. Like so, I just always competitive. If we played hide and seek, I'm gonna be hidden the longest. That was me as a kid, and anybody who knows me, like right now, watch me grow up, will concur. Right? They will second that. People will come from all these different projects to race me. Like it was just I was competitive, man. I was competitive, and I was also like a good kid. I would empty trash for people. I had two paper routes. I carried. I was raised in Lynchburg, Virginia. I was
Okay.
born in Goldsboro, North Carolina, though. So I'm just a natural hustler, right? Goldsboro is a lot, and my son. I'm right now. I'm also a father, right? So my son, my 3-year old, about to be 4-year old, is whenever I'm in an interview, he got to come in it, right? And my daughter is in there sleep. She's like her mother. She could sleep all day, and she's 6. He will be 4 on the 2nd of July, the day after my 9 years is the day he was born, like the 2nd. But
Happy
Trey,
Father's Day
I
too.
in the interview. You gotta go downstairs and watch TV, okay? I love you too. We'll go watch TV, okay? All right.
Happy
So this is
Father's
my
Day too.
this is my thank you, brother. This is my favorite thing about my freedom, right? I'm a father,
Mhm.
like when I say I'm a father, I'm an active father, right? I'm absolutely in love with my children. I'm in love with my wife, but and that's something that I really want to talk about even more. But we'll go to that. Let's get back to me as a child, right? I was raised by my mother. My father got a divorce. We were in California. I lived in California up until the age of 4, and my father got busted selling weed in the military. So he had to go to the brig, right? When he
Mhm.
was in the military. And while he was in there, my mother left him. You know, he was doing time and she left him and moved us back to North Carolina, Goldsboro. And eventually she moved to Virginia. And I don't know why, but she moved to Lynchburg. And that was where, the world got bigger for me. Virginia is different than North Carolina, and Goldsboro is smaller than Lynchburg. So when I got to Lynchburg, it's like it was just you know eyes wide open. But I grew into that element. I grew into it, right? And I was when I grew up. I don't know if you're familiar with Jerry Falwell, but Jerry
Yes.
Falwell had a church called Thomas Road Baptist Church, and he would send out buses every Sunday morning and pick up all the kids and all the projects around the city. Not
Mm.
just the project, just in the lower areas, right? The lower economic areas, right? He would send buses out and bring them to his church, right? So we were little kids, little dusty little kids. We all went to Thomas Road because the buses were provided for us to come to the church, and that was part of my growing up. It's just that like my sister, she was a part of the Kiwanis Club, and Jerry Falwell did a lot. You know what I'm saying, for Lynchburg, right? I will say that every year he would take bus loads of us to King's Dominion. We had to pay to get into King's Dominion, but he would take us. And
Provide
back
the
then,
provide the
he
transportation.
provided the transportation. So every morning, every year, I forgot what day it was, but he would take bus loads, like 30, 40 buses of young kids from Lynchburg would go, and we would bum rush King's Dominion. And back then it was like $15 to get in and just enjoy the day. And that was another thing. So that was my upbringing. Living in Old Mill and Yorktown and Greenfield. And well, I lived in Greenfield later, which is the largest projects in the city. But just coming up in Lynchburg, man, was different. And being that inquisitive kid I was, I learned a lot. And I don't know. It was a wonderful childhood. I'll say that. I had a wonderful childhood. We didn't go to sleep hungry. My mother worked hard. Like we weren't in the best position. We still got stamps and assistance and all that, right? We still had roaches, but so it's like I was out of the worst environment, the projects, and into lower income housing. You know how women get the Section 8 voucher, they can move
Hmm.
out the projects and then they can go get a apartment in another apartment complex where all the
Hmm.
other people came out of the project. So even though you're not in the projects, you're in the same place with the project people. You know what I'm saying? So that's where we were living at. That's how I was raised.
So when did I guess your life shift from, or when did you start seeing things that made you shift into the streets?
In the 80s, man. In the 80s, I'm gonna say probably 80, 86, 87 is when I first started to see the streets, right? See the street life. I grew up on the other side of town. So when I started going to Fifth Street, where a friend of mine lived at, Fifth Street is the epicenter of that's like where everything was going down. And like the major club was 707 back then. And my homie's apartment, where we stayed with him at was right around the corner. So we could walk right up the street to the corner. We could look down the street and we could see the 707 at night. And you know how club parking lots are, you know. So we were watching everything going down in the parking lot, like dudes going from car to car selling powder, right? And then, as I got, like, it wasn't even a year later, like months later, selling powder turned to selling crack, right? Selling rock. That Ready Rock was coming down from New York, right? And dudes who was first selling powder cocaine started selling crack, and that crack just hit different. It took over. I remember, in eighth grade, man, some of my friends I went to school with was selling crack in eighth grade, and they would come to. I went to Dunbar, which was an all black high school, but then they turned it into a middle school in my city. So it's the Dunbar Poets. I went to Dunbar, and Paul Laurence Dunbar, and these kids would come in. You get free lunch. Everybody was getting free lunch. It wasn't a lot of people at Dunbar who paid for lunch. We all got free lunch, right? And then these dudes start coming with all this money, and we in eighth grade, they're buying extra pizzas, extra cinnamon buns, and all this. So I'm seeing this. I'm like, man, they get two pizzas. You know what I'm saying? So, these are the things that you see as a little kid. Okay, go watch TV, Trey. And excuse me. And Trey, go in the room and watch TV. This little boy. And then the ninth grade came. I didn't hustle in eighth grade. I was tempted. Ninth grade came, and I was able to get my first job. So me and my best friend and my other best friend, like Ronnie and Bones, we all had jobs at the plaza in Lynchburg. And our first paycheck came, and I was like, yo, we're gonna go buy some coke. You know what I'm saying? We're going to flip some work, right? Take this money and go make it more. And I learned that because a friend of mine, my elementary school best friend, name was Tim. He had me hold his coke one day, and while he was gone, this was in eighth grade. While he was gone, now this might the summer between eighth and ninth. While he was gone, somebody came up, a lady came up to me and asked me if I was holding. Look, man, you got something. And this was in where I lived at in Yorktown. And I'm like, man, I got Tim's stuff. And I opened it up and I looked at it. First time seeing crack, right? It was in my hand and I'm looking at it. And I showed it to the lady and she grabbed one and gave me $20, right? And I did the math. I'm looking at how many I got in my hand. And I'm like, all these Jones, $20? You know what I'm saying? So I'm counting up in my mind how much money. It's like 300 some dollars, right? In 20s. So I put it back in the little valve. Back then, it used to be a valve. And when Tim came, I was like, man, how much all that cost? He said, man, that was $100 block. So $100 block, you can cut up $300 off of, right? 300 some change. So I did the math. We get paid for 2 weeks. And that 2 week check was like $200, right? So I was like, man, I could buy $100 block and make $300. I gotta work 2 weeks to make 200. You know what I'm saying? So that's easy math, right? That's easy math. So I told my homeboys, like, look, man, we're gonna go buy $100 block and we can make 300. You know what I'm saying? They was like, yeah, yeah. So that's what we did, and that's how I started hustling. And that was in ninth grade. I was playing football. I never forget, man. I played football. I was a wide receiver and I was a linebacker. And once we started hustling, I stopped playing football. You know what I'm saying? That was the end of sports for me. Like that was the end of sports. That was the end of my job. My mother thought I was still working, but I was making money in the streets. You feel what I'm saying? So I had a reason to have money, but she thought it was coming from my job. She didn't know I left my job. And after that, I barely went to school. This was ninth grade. I was in ISS all the time. And after school suspension, in school suspension, all type of stuff, man. And it all stemmed from me getting in the streets. Once I got in the streets, man, and started seeing money, my eyes opened to possibilities. I was like, man, like, why am I even going to school? You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't. We would skip school most of the time. We would skip school, especially if it was pumping on a Friday. You can cancel it. We not gonna be in school. We on the block, right? So we would skip school. We'll go to school and we'll skip school and walk down the Fifth or walk to First and Federal or White Rock or wherever, right? Catch the bus or whatever. But we going to be on that block, right? When it's pumping.
So let's shift. When did you actually catch your first case or get in trouble?
I didn't get any trouble while I was a juvenile from 88 to 92. 1992 is when I turned 18, my senior year in high school. And I don't know how I made it to my senior year in high school, but I made it to be a senior, man. So it was like it seemed like they waited for me to turn 18. As soon as I turned 18, I got locked up. So my first time getting locked up was for shooting a BB gun. I was doing drive-bys with a BB gun. I was shooting people, man. I had changed. The young kid who I was, the innocent little young competitive kid I was different now. The streets change you, right? Because when you become a part of this different element, you slowly adapt to it. So the streets requires a certain level of aggression, right? In order to be safe, you have to be aggressive, man. You can't be soft or passive. So I was one of those young kids who was super aggressive, and I was a skilled fighter, right? I was a big dude for a young kid, and people respected me, like so I excelled in the streets. Unfortunately, I excelled in the streets because remember, I'm super competitive. If I'm doing something, my goal is to be the best at it. I don't want to be second. I don't want to be average. I hate average. I've never been average at anything. So think if I'm transitioning into the drug life, what's my goal as a drug dealer?
Be the
I want to be
best.
the best. Yeah, I want to be the best. So what I was trying to do was be the best. And I was building a reputation in my stupid butt. I'm out there telling people, like all the pipe heads come through, you know, we weren't going by nicknames. Everybody knew me by Carlos Parks. So my name started ringing, my real name. So it wasn't hard for the police to figure out who I was and where I was at. My name, I'm going by my name. All the crackheads, crackheads start telling, they get caught. As soon as they get caught, they telling, oh, Carlos, I got it from Carlos Park. So, it wasn't long. And I eventually got an indictment while I was in for that BB gun thing. Um, I got caught. No, first I got caught serving someone a nickel. A nickel. That was my first time getting arrested for drugs. And they didn't catch the nickel on me because I didn't turn down no money. So because I wouldn't turn down no money, the fiends liked me. They liked me. You know what I'm saying? All right, man, I took all money. They could come to me with shorts because I understood like I don't remember who taught it to me, but you don't let any money get away. So even if it's $5, you give them a nickel, and I always tell them like, don't complain about what you get because you came to me with $5. You got to take what I put in your hand. You know what I'm saying? All right, just give me something. They don't care as long as it's a bump. So I would give them a little pinch. You know what I'm saying? All right, here you go. Give me my $5. But that's how I got. They jumped out on me. My homeboy supposed to been watching. He didn't see the van coming. Next thing you know, they was throwing us in the mud. But the nickel was gone. It fell in the mud. They found it, and they busted me and the fiend I was serving. But the fiend ended up taking the charge, and they gave him uh, rehab. And right before I was about to get out, they indicted me for making an undercover sale. They already had the. It was one of those indictments. They had the indictment waiting. So right before I was about to get out, but I went to boot camp. So my first offense, I was sentenced to boot camp, and you probably remember, boot camp was popular. They called it shock probation in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
You get in trouble, you're a first time offender. Boot camp was their way of allowing first time offenders a second chance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got boot camp, 90-day boot camp, and it made me even more militant. Boot camp, boot camp turned me to a real soldier, So I wanted to go into the military when I came home from boot camp. And
Okay.
ironically, so I skipped the whole portion. When I was 17, I was stabbed. I forgot
Mm.
about this. I was stabbed when I was 17 in Lynchburg. Friend was getting a couple of my friends were getting jumped, and we went down to help him. Me and his older brother Ron, rest in peace, my homie Ron, dead right now. But um, when we went down there to fight, one of the guys stabbed me in my back. I was on top of him, pounding him out, and he evidently got in his pocket and hooked it in me and like bear hugged me, and I was on top of him, and he had the knife in my back, like just cranking it like a motorcycle, and I was able to get him off and get up. And I was 17. I was 17, and this dude was like 32, you know. And after that stabbing, my mother was afraid that something, she thought maybe I owed somebody something in the streets. She didn't know. So she sent me to live with my father in Goldsboro, North Carolina. And I
Okay.
forgot all about that. But I lived with my father for my senior year in Goldsboro, and it's my first time living with my dad since I was 4. You know, my dad had gotten married. I had 2 little sisters, and life changed for me because my father is like me. He's a big dude, right? And like the things that I would try on my mother, I
Couldn't
wasn't
drive.
I wasn't gonna do that with my dad, right? I wasn't gonna do that with my dad. So I didn't hustle. While I was in Goldsboro, I didn't hustle. I came from, being in the streets all day, every day in Lynchburg. When I went to Goldsboro, lived with my father, I didn't hustle. So I had gotten stabbed, so I couldn't play football. I got down there, I was like, man, I want to play football. And I tried to get on the football team, but I couldn't practice because I got a fresh stab wound. I'm telling the coach, like, man, just give me a shot. I'm good. I'm a beast. Like, but he was like, I can't put you on a team when you got people trying out for a team and you can't even try out. So that year, I tried out for the basketball team. Never played basketball, but I could jump out the gym. I broke the backboard at my high school in 10th grade.
Okay.
I won every dunk contest I ever got in. I was dunking in 8th grade. You know what I'm saying? So like I was like super athletic, and they put me on the basketball team just off my hops. I ain't know I couldn't dribble. I couldn't do anything, but I could get a rebound. I could block some shots, right? And then it didn't hurt that the coach was married to my aunt, and then my name is Carlos Parks, and I have a cousin named Carlos Parks who was a star at Goldsboro High School. So when they saw that name, I guess they thought I was gonna be like my cousin. But my cousin was a beast. He was a point guard. He was a shorter version of me. And everybody's like, they see the name Carlos Parks. Yeah, that's my cousin. Before they even say something, I'd be like, yeah, that's my big cousin. So ironically, I was named after my cousin. But I kind of forget that period in Goldsboro whenever I'm talking to people and I get interviewed. Somehow I skip over that. I guess 4 or 5 month period, the period leading up to um,
The
Christmas
rest.
break.
Yeah.
Christmas break. So Christmas break, I asked my dad if I could go back and see my mother for Christmas, and he said yes. And I never went back to Goldsboro. I went back to Lynchburg, and I got back in the streets, and that was it. That was it. That was
Okay.
my year. Yeah.
So what year was it when you actually caught the I guess the 30 years?
Oh, the 30 years came in 1998. I was incarcerated in 1998 all the way to 2015. I was sentenced in 99 though, but I was in custody in 98. I went to trial for like, I was in the jail in Charlotte Mecklenburg County Jail for 19 months.
Before you get to that, give me the briefing on what happened, how you got there.
All right, so leading up to that, my first arrest boot camp, came home because that's a smack on the wrist, right? So I
Mhm.
came home. I didn't want to hustle, but I eventually started back hustling because I got with this chick, and she was a girl from New York, and she took care of me. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't have to hustle because she did, and she was one of those girls, gold in the mouth, gold chains, big bangles, and all that, right? So she was getting money, and I was kind of like I was like a housewife. She just took care of me. Just bought my clothes, everything. I didn't hustle. She took care of me. I didn't work. I didn't do anything. All I had to just take care of her. So she said something one day during our argument. She said something about you don't do nothing. I take care of you. And when she said that, you can imagine how that feels as a man. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Because
these ain't the words you
we're
say.
not naturally. Nah, you don't say that to a man because we're not naturally adept at being taken care of. We are the providers, right? The protectors, right? So this role reversal didn't feel comfortable to me. And then when she said that, that was it. That was it. I said, "Oh no, she'll never get an opportunity to say that to me again." And I went right back to the streets, and I went and I was in go mode, Carlos. I went to a whole nother plateau at that point. I That's probably one of my highest moments. Is at that point I blew up. It's like I wanted to get to a key. That was like a milestone for young guys like myself coming up, getting to that key, right? So I got to a key in a matter of months, right? I got to more than a key and didn't even realize it. So I had like a lot of money put up, and then I went and I counted all the coke I had, and we were in the bricks, we were in the projects, right? In Greenfield, and man, I got like 32. No, I had like 42 ounces of hard in my closet, and probably about $42,000 in cash in the drawer, and probably like the same amount in the streets because I had a big sales team. I had a lot of guys under me, whole Fifth Street. But that's when I realized like I had surpassed my goal by a long shot, but I was in go mode, so I never even took the time to see where I was at, financially. But I know I was up, and I knew she could never say again to me what she said that one time. And it wasn't long before our relationship dissolved because I was up, and so I moved. I moved out. We went through some things though, because she was crazy. So yeah,
So you done messed around and graduated. I'm gonna use these terms. You done
that's exactly.
graduated,
Yep, that's it.
and what led to you getting locked up? How did you get there?
Man, it was my connect. I was fortunate enough to have a Dominican connect, and after going to New York my first time when I was probably 17, I was taken up there by my enlightener, Divine, and I saw how it was in New York. You go there and all these Dominicans are just on you, like, "Hey, what's up, Poppy? What's up, Poppy? Uh, I got the fish scale, Poppy. I got the fish scale." And they running their prices down, and they all trying to compete for you because you stand out. They can tell you're an out of towner, and an out of towner back then in Washington Heights is only there for one thing. You know what I'm saying? You when you're there, when you're in Washington Heights, and this was in the late '80s, early '90s, you can see different license plates, right? And
Mm-hmm.
these New Yorkers, these Dominicans, because Washington Heights was all Dominicans. So these Dominicans would see us coming, and they could see us how we dress, how we wear our hats. If you come through Washington Heights and you got on an LA Dodgers hat or no, not is anything other than New York Yankees,
They,
New York Yankees or New York Mets, you from out of town. You're a
they knew you were
customer.
hungry.
Yeah, they know you're a custy. They called us custies, customers. So they looked
Mm-hmm.
at us the same way we looked at fiends when they came through the block.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw how easy it was in my first time going into one of these spots, and you got these two Dominicans on the door with guns. You sitting down, and they come out with the big triple beam scale and a big black trash bag full of hard, full of coke. You can buy it hard or soft, right? So I just saw how easy it was. And then when my man got locked up, my enlightener, the divine is the one who introduced me to the nation of gods and earths,
Okay.
5%. So I became nation god and earth under his tutelage, right? And I also learned how to cop on my own in New York. So I started going there, and when I started going to New York is when I graduated, right? I had graduated. I was going to New York when I was with that girl, and I ended up getting some Dominicans that lived in Lynchburg. So when I found out there were Dominicans in Lynchburg, I put two and two together.
And connected.
Dominicans, the same Dominicans that I saw in New York, we have some here now, and they try to do a spot in Lynchburg like they was doing in New York. So I met them, and next thing you know, they moved in with me. You know what I'm saying? So I got to connect now, living with me, and now I've graduated to a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
And these graduation periods, I got to the point where I had access to more drugs than I could sell in Lynchburg. So I started branching out. That's when I started going down to North Carolina.
Okay.
Um, yeah, who is now my baby mother. She was from down there, and she took me down there and made a lot of introductions. So I started serving guys in other cities in North Carolina, and because I had access to all of this stuff, and they like, look, man. And by this time, I'm going by Cap. I wasn't Carlos Parks anymore. I was Cap. I learned that you need a nickname in this game. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So my nickname was Cap, which is my initials, right? But for some people, people always thought it stood for captain, right? Because I was always the captain of the ship. They thought it was for captain, or because I always wear hats.
Okay.
Always wearing a cap. But that's how the indictment came about. I was there in North Carolina in a place called Lenore. Lenore. I was in Lenore, Hickory, and Morganton, in Statesville, right? And in 94, end of 94, beginning of 95. No, 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 no. I'm sorry. It was the end of 95, middle of 95, end of 95, because my son was born in 95. It was, yeah, it was, nah, it was the beginning of 95, in the 94, beginning of 95. That's when I was there. All right. And for a brief amount of time, I didn't even really do much. I was there maybe 3, 4 months. And I was indicted. Mind you, this was 94, 95. I was indicted in 98 for what I did in 94, 95.
What was the charge?
Distribution of cocaine base, and marijuana in the Western District of North Carolina.
So we about to fast forward.
Okay.
You get charged with this.
Yeah.
They
Hmm.
give you're going to court. They give you 30 years. What was the mind state at that time? How did you
Uh,
feel? What was running through your mind?
so really I felt that believe it or not, I was relieved, right? Because I was looking at life. I was looking at 360 months to life. That was my sentencing range. So I'm like, okay, well, I didn't get the life. I got the 360. And by this time, they had indicted all my homies in Lynchburg. And I would have got life in Lynchburg. I would have been the head of the conspiracy. North Carolina saved me, right? So I was kind of relieved. Now I'm like, okay, I wasn't even in fight mode yet. Once I got to 30 years, um, it was shocking. I ain't crying nothing like that, right? It was like, okay, I gotta do it. I'm a man. I gotta do it. I ain't snitching. I ain't telling on nobody. It's not even an option, right? So that's my cross to bear, right? So um it was go mode. I was ready to go into the system. Like I say, remember my mindset, and you always speak about mindset. So even before I studied and read about the mindset and the subconscious mind, and how you enact things and how you manifest things, right? Before this time, right? I already had a mindset of excelling in whatever I do. So now I'm a prisoner. I'm an inmate. I want to be the best one in it, right? So that's my goal. Competitive nature, right? So I'm like, okay, where we going? Send me where we going. So when you're in the jail for 19 months, you can't wait to get out of a jail environment and
Mm-hmm.
get sent up the road. It's a horrible feeling. Like, people don't understand the difference between jail and prison. It's a big difference,
Big
right?
difference.
In a jail, you're locked in a building. A
Yeah.
building.
Cage, basically.
Yeah, just watching TV. You ain't got access to nothing. You can do some push-ups, some sit-ups, some stairs. You can do the stairs. It's certain stuff you can do, but you're doing that all day, every day. The food is horrible. The visitations are horrible. The recreation is horrible. So the jail kind of makes you want to hurry up and get it over with. So you
Yes.
like, man, give me what you gonna give me. You know what I'm saying? Just give me what you gonna give me and get me out of here. And a lot of times they get guilty pleas because guys are just tired
Tired
of
of
the
jail.
jail. They're tired of the jail, man. The jails are horrible, right? So like I was ready to get up the road. So the 30 years, I didn't even, I mean, it hurt me, but it ain't, I was ready to get out of that jail.
Ready to get out to jail.
Yeah, I was ready to get out of that jail.
So
That was it.
when they do send you up the road,
Yeah.
tell me the time that it took for you to, I guess you could say, excel mentally. Because there's a
Oh,
lot of stuff that you got 30 years.
yeah,
And
yeah,
your first
yeah.
probably 10 might have been in, they sent you probably to the pen, right?
Nah, they see I ducked the pen. They sent me to
Okay.
Beckley, West Virginia, because they
Well,
had a
shit.
program in Beckley. They had started a program called the Brave Unit. The Brave program was to prevent young guys from getting sent to the pen. So they
Okay.
send you to the Brave Unit, this Brave program you go through, and it helps to acclimate you to prison, right?
Hmm.
Because a lot of young guys were going to these pens and getting victimized.
Wide open.
Yeah, or they were becoming crash dummies.
Hmm.
They get in a car, they get with a set, a gang or whatever, and the gang sending these young boys on these missions. So I'm glad I ducked the pen because with the mentality I came in with, I was angry, fresh
Hmm.
30 years, and I was bitter. You know what I'm saying? I was bitter and I was just mad at the world and I really couldn't see society. I couldn't see myself going home. I'm like, I'm going home at 53, 54 years old. Like, man, they might as well kill me. That's how I
Hmm.
thought, right? Why didn't they just give me a life sentence? You know, like that's life. 54 years, you know what I'm saying? So that was my mentality going in. So when I got to Beckley, I didn't realize I had dodged a bullet. I didn't know what the pin was then. I didn't know they had put me in a better situation, but they put me on a yard with 4 or 5 of the people who testified on me. I had 15 people testify on me, and 4, I think, of them were there. Like so, when I got on the yard, I think it might have been 5, but they immediately went to the staff and was like, "Hey, this guy can't be on the yard with us." So I got there on a Friday. I was in the hole that weekend. I was gone. Probably a month later, I sat in the hole for a month, and then they shipped me from Beckley. But I did get to walk the yard that first day. My first day, Friday, I'm there, bus shoes and bus clothes and all that, and I got to walk the yard. And it was like I was in New York. You know how the first time you go to New York, you just like this, and that's another way they recognize you because tourists are always looking up, right? New Yorkers don't look up, but when we go there, we're looking up because we're looking at these buildings. That's how I walked around Beckley. Like I was just shocked. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, man, I'm used to doing state time. I've been in North Carolina State and Virginia State. It's nothing like the feds. So when I got to Beckley, I was just like, man, they got these big buildings. They got the rec yard. They had handball courts. This handball going on, basketball games. They playing flag football, soccer, softball.
A
They
little bit
shooting
of
dice
everything.
over here. They got 2 dice games going on. They got poker tables out on the yard. It was like an event. Like I got there in the summer. So when I first walked on the yard, man, I was just like awestruck. I was awestruck, man. Like that's the best way to describe it. I
So they
was
so they
hmm,
ship where did they where did they ship you at?
they shipped me from Beckley to Cumberland, Maryland.
Is when did you go to the program that you was telling me about? Was that in Cumberland?
Nah, Brave program.
Yeah.
That was at Beckley. I never even got a chance to enter into the program because I had 5 guys there who told on me.
So
So
you get to
they got
you
me
get
off of it.
yeah, you get over here to Cumberland. Tell me a little bit about the life at Cumberland because how many prisons did you actually go to?
I hit nine different yards.
God damn. Well, you
Yeah,
did do 17, but
yeah,
within this range of yards that you hit, within this range of time,
yeah.
what was life like?
Well, Cumberland for me was school. Cumberland is where I learned how to bit because when you first come in, you don't know how to bit in the feds. Feds are different, right? They play by a different set of rules. So when I first got to Cumberland, that's where I really learned the rules. And my main teacher was my celly. He was a guy from DC named Fat Sean, rest in peace. He passed, a couple years ago in DC, homeless on the streets, man. Unfortunately, I hated to hear about it. But man, he was my teacher. He taught me everything, man. Like I didn't know anything. And I was in a three-man cell, and Fat Sean taught me. I was wondering why the DC dudes was acting the way they was acting towards me, right? And I asked him, like, what's up with your homies, man? Like he's like, man, they don't know if you a rat or not. They don't know anything about you. I'm like, man, I ain't no rat. I went to trial. You know what I'm saying? So he was like, all right, well, they don't know that. Slim, you got to produce your paperwork. Like, what paperwork? You know what I'm saying? He like your PSI. I'm like, what's the PSI? So I remember I went to trial, so I got all my legal work coming. So when my legal work come, he go through it with me. He said, man, here go your PSI, man. He pull it out, he look at it. Oh, nah, you good. You good. You ain't got no 5K1, no Rule 35. I'm like, what is that? I don't know what these things are. And he breaks it down and he tell me what it is. And I'm like, oh, so they want to see this? He like, yeah, man, I took my paperwork out there in the day room. I said, man, look, here go my paperwork. Anybody want to see it? Here go my PSI. And I dropped it on the table. And I left. So after that, the I guess dudes looked at it or whatever. I got it about 2 weeks later. The CO called me in the office, said, man, is this your PSI? I'm like, yeah. So it's circulated the unit by this time. Anybody want to see my work can see my work. I ain't tripping on that. So after that, the attitudes towards me change because now they know I'm solid. And inside, people don't mess with you if you're a rat, right? They don't mess with you if you're a rat because there's so much going on in these institutions. The dudes can't afford to have someone around them who might tell. Like if it's a guy got a cell phone, he don't want a rat around him because he knows a rat will tell, right? Like so, and man, there a rat you gonna have you. It's gonna be a hard bit for you. You know what I'm saying? If you're not right, it's gonna be a hard bit for you. But if you solid, if you're a solid dude, man, it's like they lay out the red carpet for you. Everything is good after that. So my time at Cumberland was smooth sailing because I'm a solid dude. They knew I was solid, and I wasn't going for nothing. You can't. And when I say not going for nothing, no disrespect, no sideways approaches, no light pressing or none of that. I wasn't going for none of that. And once people understand that about you, they're not going to try you. They like, nah, you don't try Slim. don't try Slim. He gonna get out there. You know what I'm saying? So that it's just different once they realize who you are, and then you can move a lot differently. But I was bitter at the time, and I was still that street. I was still Cap at the time.
Okay. When did you turn to Carlos?
Man, so the early part of my bit, I was still selling drugs. I was still hustling. I was like, believe it or not, you can still do that in there. So I was still doing those negative things. And it wasn't until this girl I had been involved with throughout my bit, this girl named Kitty. She was from Baltimore. And she supported me a lot, right? Not just financially, emotionally. And she educated me. She started sending me good books, right? Literature. She wanted me to read this and read that. So I was reading everything Kitty sent me, and then she sent me this one book that I see as the pivotal defining moment in my bit was when I got the book As a Man Thinketh. And I always talk about that book
It's one of my
as a
favorite
man.
books.
Yeah, so that book, it changed it was a paradigm shift for me. I started to see things differently because I realized the power of the mind, right? And the power of manifesting the things that you want and you desire. So that is when I officially was like, man, I'm done with this, you know, thugging and shit. I became Carlos at that point. I respected my intellectual value more than my physical value. Before, it wasn't an intellectual approach to things. It was always a physical approach to things with me. So once I started to take an intellectual approach to things, and think through things and like I became that critical thinker that I am now.
Or the professional problem solver that you
Exactly.
shared with me earlier that you are.
Yep. And that started in there, man. Actually, because I'm an advocate for people. I've never liked bullies, right? I never liked bullies because I had a bully growing up. I didn't mention that, but I was bullied every day. You know, when I was in school, middle school, I would get bullied every day by these two dudes right there, jump me like after school. I was a big sixth grader, right, and they were like seventh and eighth grade, and they would it wasn't like no rough bullying, but they would like slam me, throw my book bag and stuff like that. After we get out the bus, I'm coming home, grass stains on my school clothes, that type of thing, right, every day, and I never told anybody. I
Mhm.
never told anybody, right, and I never got off at another stop. I always got off at my bus stop. I could have got off up the street to avoid that, right? I wasn't ducking no wreck. Okay, y'all want to do that? We're gonna do that, and they did that whole school year until the next year. I had a new friend moved into my apartment complex, and we were the same age. So now I got a homie that's going to school with me, and the bullying stopped because I wasn't by myself. I got
Mhm.
my homie TJ with me now, and he was a little dude, but he was down. You know what I'm saying? So he gonna get out there with me. So now these dudes they wasn't messing with me, and eventually I started pressing them. You know what I'm saying? So it became I wasn't bullying them, but if I caught them messing with somebody, I would run over there, chest out, like, "What y'all doing? What's up?" You know what I'm saying? And that's how I became a problem solver, a protector. I was the protector for my hood. You know, and I've always been that way since. I've always been a protector. And in the prison system, you know, COs can victimize us, right?
Yes.
COs can victimize us. COs can come in there with a chip on their shoulder and they
Keep
abuse their
bullying.
yeah, they abuse their power. So they represented a bully for me. So how did I attack that? Is I got my hands on the officer's code of conduct. And once I got that officer's code of conduct, I had all the articles and everything, what they could and they couldn't do. What happens if they do this and all of this. And I memorized it. I committed it to memory. So whenever I saw staff taking advantage of somebody, I would go over like, hey, man, you can't do that. You know, article such and such and such states that you know what I'm saying? So now I know I'm powerful, you know, because I'm using my intellectual knowledge now. And guys would be like, they recognize it. So everybody on the yard would be coming to me like, man, I need you to help me. I need to write this CO up and I need to, you know what I'm saying? So now I'm the write up the CO dude on the yard. Everybody come to me when it's something dealing with staff, right? And that was, I think that was the beginning of me becoming a professional problem solver.
Okay, let's fast forward it again.
Yeah.
So you done started now because of the young lady actually using your intellect, reading more
Okay.
books, doing
Yeah.
things of this nature. It's building your artillery.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're becoming who you are today, but not knowing that you are becoming the guy that you are now.
Yep.
So I don't know how long ago in your bit do you actually think that actually progressed, or when you started working on you in that fashion?
I think so. I won my appeal in 2010, right? So right before 2010, when I won my appeal, is when I really started focusing on the positive attributes that I possess. And I was always like educated, well educated. I was always the smartest kid in my class, always, right? I was sent to a gifted school when I was in elementary. They sent me to a gifted school, but I didn't like it because it was only like three black kids there, right? And I told my mother I don't want to be here. You know what I'm saying? I quit. It was a group called the Go Center, and like I say, it was just a bunch of little rich white kids, and a few black kids from the hood who excelled, intellectually, right? But I didn't want to be a part of that. I never wanted to like showcase my intelligence when I was young. I didn't think that represented being cool, and I I was a cool kid, you know what I'm saying? So, I just And remember, I passed all the way to 12th grade with no effort. You know what I'm saying? Like I really didn't go to school, but I could pass these exams. So, at the end of the year, you take the exams. I'm going to pass the exams. I don't fail tests, right? I just don't do work. I just didn't do the work. But, when I got in there, man, I started realizing, okay, well, intellect is something to be valued. And probably right before, like reading these books, man, I think I read Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich.
Another one of my favorite books.
That was another change for me mentally, man. Like man, like Think and Grow Rich just did it. It sent me over the top, right?
Mhm.
And I love reading books. I wrote a few books while I was in there. Every time I went to the hole, I would write a book. Like
Okay.
every time, yeah, I spent a lot of time in the shoe because I was a leader, right? So when you're in a leadership position and something happens on the yard, they lock up the shot call.
Yep.
I would be in there for that a lot of times, and I didn't even mind going to the hole. I'm like I'm like an omnivert. I'm not an introvert or extrovert. I'm good by myself or with people, right? So when I was in the hole, man, I'm good. Don't bring me no celly. Leave me in here. Let me know when it's time to go. Cause I'm gonna get to this. I was in the hole. I would make a Scrabble board and play Scrabble against myself.
Okay.
I was good. I could play chess against myself. I was just good alone. I didn't mind being in the cell. So you have to have a celly. I would refuse a celly. I'd be like, nah, I ain't taking no celly. I don't want no celly. Sometimes I would let people come in and be my little homies from the yard. Like, man, Cap, let me. All right, man, come on. But I would prefer to be alone, in there.
So, gotta ask a question.
Okay.
When you got your time reduction, what
Okay.
did or when you won, how did that feel? Because now you no longer got 30 years.
Yeah, yeah. So first of all, it like I was dizzy. It blew my mind, right? I found out by reading the emails in federal prison, they have an email system where
Mm-hmm.
your family can email you. And every morning when you get up, the first thing you do is you go check your emails. Every morning you go check your emails. Or when you come in from the rec yard, you go check your emails. And most of the time there's a line. You gotta be like, I'm after you. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you got to get your position in line. But I came in off the yard, checked my email, and I got an email from my mother. And it was you know, in all caps. We won, we won, we won. Thank the Lord and all this other stuff, right? I'm like, damn, my mom talking about. I didn't know what she was talking about, right? And like, what's she talking about? And I kind of like started sweating. Like my heart sped up because I could feel her excitement through the email, right? And I call, I'm like, Mom, what's up? She's like, boy, we won, we won. The appeal came back. Arnold Henderson just called me and told me that you got your time reduced to 20 years. I'm like, huh? And I'm like, I'm calculating in my mind. I immediately started calculating. I'm like, okay, in 30 years, they knocked it down to 240 months, 20 years. I've been gone 12 years. How much you do on 20 years? You know what I'm saying? Calculate. So you do 85%, which is 17 and a half. And then I'm like, okay, well, I can get a year halfway house if I go get this program. If I go get this program, I wasn't I couldn't get the drug program because I got gun in my charge, right? But they had this religious program I took, which gives you 6 months to a year off, right? So that'll put me off in 5 years. So I'm like, hold up, 5 years? 5 years is short.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got 5 years. I go home in five. I couldn't get over it because I was going home in 15 years.
Yeah.
So it went from 15 years to 5 years. So now I'm short. My whole mindset changed. Like everything changed for me. I was at Pollock, Louisiana when I found out. I had joined the Toastmasters International at Pollock. They had Toastmasters come there. We were the first sanctioned branch of Toastmasters International in federal prison. So I was a part of the Fresh Start Toastmasters group, and it was super positive. Toastmasters had a 0% recidivism rate. If you were a Toastmaster in the state system and you went home, you didn't come back. Never.
Mm-hmm.
That's how so this was the sale for me. When they brought Toastmasters to our institution, they told us what it was. when they said they had a 0% recidivism rate in the state,
You
oh,
gotta
that's
jump
all I
on it.
needed to hear. That's it. That was it for me. That's all I needed to hear. I'm like, what? Just doing this? So with Toastmasters, when you think about it, it's a national speaking organization,
Hmm.
but it's so much more than that. It helps you become a better communicator,
There we go.
right?
There we
And
go.
communication
It's
helps you in
everything.
the work. Exactly. Interviews, you got to be a good communicator, right? They want to talk to you, regardless of what your resume look like. It's not until they meet you that they determine whether or not you're a good fit for their company.
Problem solving.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Go ahead.
a lot of people, you can think of something, but you're not able to articulate it.
Come on.
See, if you can't articulate it, you can't paint the picture with your words. For me, see, me, I'm on the receiving end. If you're talking to me, I need to understand you, right? So Toastmasters help you become a better communicator and listener,
Come on
right?
now.
Not and because we would listen to each other's speeches, whether it be table topics or whatever we were talking about, we would listen and actively listen. When you actively listen, you grasp the information that's being given to you. So I man, Toastmasters was huge for me. It was huge for me, and
I'm glad
it
you brought
helped.
that up.
Yeah, it helped me coming home because I was chomping at the bit when I came home, and I will say every interview.
You took Toastmasters. We're gonna kind of I'm gonna speed it through just a little bit. The things that you have done since you've been home.
Okay.
I can hear that a lot of the things that you did in there, you prepared yourself for the forward progress that you are doing now.
Hmm.
Being in Toastmasters, you got a TEDx talk.
Well, yeah, I got so Toastmasters started me with my journey to want to become a speaker, right? But it wasn't until I joined the Dudley Eagle Speakers Bureau that I had the TEDx door open. And so I took on a mentor. I was introduced to Dr. Joe L. Dudley Sr., and that was the transformative time in my life, post conviction. Once I came home, I was a regular Joe at first. I worked, I was a personal trainer. I was a tilapia salesman. I was a security guard. These are the jobs I had in Durham, right? Before I moved out here to Greensboro. And when I moved to Greensboro, I got my I had a warehouse job. I worked in a warehouse for a while until I got injured. Then I became a peer support specialist, right? That's when I worked in mental health. It was during this time that I seeded into real estate. And that's also the time when I met Mr. Dudley. And when I met Mr. Dudley, it just changed my life. You know, he was my mentor, but he taught me so much as far as a speaker. He gave over 30,000 speeches, you know. And he was just like, if people don't know who Dr. Joe L. Dudley is, they need to look him up. But yeah, he is the reason I have my book. I have there's just so many things that took place after. And when I became a Dudley Eagle speaker, um, um, I was one of the founding members of the newly resurrected Dudley Eagle Speakers Bureau, because he's always had speakers bureaus. He had a 500-man sales team, at least 500 people that went out selling his products door to door. And he would send them to schools to speak. He would pay his sales team to go speak at this event and this event. And mind you, he spoke 30,000 times. so like Mr. Dudley is was a seasoned speaker. So when I came under his tutelage, I would speak often at the house. We would have these mastermind meetings on Sundays. And when we started the Speakers Bureau, I listed it in my LinkedIn profile, one of the founding members of Dudley Eagle Speakers Bureau. I listed it one day. The next day, I got contacted by TEDx Greensboro, asking me if I would if I wanted to do a TEDx, and I was like, that's have been one of my goals and aspirations since 2015 when I came home. Is when I first saw my first TEDx and learned what it was. Shout out to my guy Life, Life and I forgot the other speaker's name, but he's a spoken word artist and speaker. And life brought me to my first TEDx.